Hello guys, how are you? This is David here. I am at Casino Quest, and Timmy gave me a mission about researching and finding sort of the urban legends that have impacted Las Vegas. And believe it or not, that's quite a few. I'm gonna start today with the three that I know the most about. We have the Mob Museum after all, so there's lots of urban legends attached to that. And we'll get to those in another episode. But today's episode, we're gonna go over sort of the top 3 urban legends that exist here in Las Vegas. And most of you, I think, if you know about Vegas, you've been visiting Vegas, you're gonna find these to be sort of very familiar. And I'm gonna put sort of the David slant on it and give you kind of some insider or some personal reference points that I have. But anyway, so I'm gonna start with the very first one, Roy Horn. Obviously, many of you may know him, may be familiar with that name. He was part of the Siegfried and Roy team. And they started at the Mirage about 1990 with their cat and magic show. And I say cat, by that I mean big ass cats. Many of you know that I have a big cat myself, not a wild cat. He happens to be a Maine Coon. His name is Bailey. He weighs about 30 pounds. And some people confuse him. I've had some people come up to my front door and get a little scared. They're like, no, that's a mountain lion. I'm not going in. And needless to say, anyways, back to Siegfried and Roy adventure. So Siegfried and Roy at the Mirage, a very famous act that they had there. In fact, inside the Mirage, they had the Siegfried and Roy Secret Garden. It was a place you could go visit. And sometimes it would feature the cats there. You could actually see, and again, by cats, I mean big cats. These were white tigers. So they were fantastic looking creatures, right? So between 1990 and 2003, 13 years, Siegfried and Roy was like the biggest act in town. I mean, they packed them in. People came from everywhere. I don't know what the numbers are, but the only other show I know that ever really rivaled Siegfried and Roy at the time, or not even at the time, but before their time, was Elvis, of course. Elvis played at the Big Hilton, sold out tons of shows, was a huge act. But Siegfried and Roy was sort of the next big thing to come on the market. Everybody wanted to be, to see their show, and involved, these big cats, these white lions, and their big magic tricks. Their show was sort of like David Copperfield. They always had sort of really big magic that played out with these cats, and the actual magic trick would take like 10 minutes to unveil itself. They weren't doing card tricks, and they weren't sleight of hand kind of things that that you'll see a lot on the Vegas Strip. So they were these sort of big acts. But anyways, they always involved big lions, and the lions, these big white tigers. And the white tigers sometimes would end up in like the crowd or in the ceiling or flying through the stage, this kind of thing. Now, sometime in the early 90s, I don't remember exactly when, I had just started in the casino dealing business, and I had a friend of mine who had come out, and I got to see Siegfried and Roy. I actually got comp tickets, and this friend was a big craps player, a big dice player at the Mirage, and at one point was up $40,000 on a Mirage game. Remember, this is like the early 90s, and so they gave him tickets to Siegfried and Roy. Later on, he would go on to lose that money at the Desert Inn, but back to the Mirage, we get into these comp booths, and the layout of the showroom at the time, they had these like 4 or 5 big booths sort of like center of the audience, but they were elevated and you could see the stage really clearly. They were very cool. And our booth was one over from where Arnold Schwarzenegger was there with his wife at the time, Maria Shriver, and his mom is a short mom. My mom, very short mom, love you mom, 5 feet tall mom, kind of Arnold, the same thing, right? And I got to sit there, and here I am at this big Siegfried and Roy show, but I'm spending more time gawking at the fact that I got Arnold Schwarzenegger over there. And of course, they made mention of the fact that he was in the audience, and then before the show ended, or when the show ended, they let him go first to make sure they could clear a path. And as they're clearing a path, I made sure to get up from my booth, and the hope was I would just be able to rub shoulders with the guy, just something little, but I never got that close, but I got to feel his sort of breath as he passed by, so it was a fantastic moment for me. So I was a huge fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day. I got into a little bodybuilding. In fact, he was the very first book I ever owned was Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger, so that was big. Okay, back to the urban legend kind of thing. Okay. So in 2003, I think it was October of 2003, Roy Horn gets on stage like he's done so many times, and he has this big tiger. His name is Montecore that he's about to do sort of a trick. He was introducing the tiger. Thankfully, I was not part of that show. I wasn't in the audience at that time. And something happened. Roy says that he was on the verge of had a stroke and that the animal was just reaching out to grab him and pull him off stage. Other people say that the tiger looked like it was startled. White lion or white tiger? You guys will correct me in the comments, I'm sure. But anyways, so needless to say, Roy Horn was mauled by the lion and severed his spine, ripped out a lot of his throat, he lost a lot of blood, and by some amazing miracle, he lived. Like everyone thought that he was gonna die. A person can't lose that much blood. The way that the lion sort of just, used him like a wet rag kind of thing and pulled him off stage, there's no way that he could live. And so, months later, even a year later, they were sort of seen, and you could see that Roy was not himself anymore. He had a speech impediment, he had some other kinds of impairment associated with this, and he wore a scarf, obviously, to cover up his thing. But many people believe that Roy actually had died, and that this person that was representing Roy was a body double that they used, because ultimately Siegfried wanted to get the show. So for the longest time, even now, it's persisted that Roy died and this body double took his place. Oddly enough, or I say unfortunately enough, COVID-19 comes along, and Roy Horn was actually contracted COVID-19, and in May it was reported that he passed away from complications due to COVID-19. And of course, an independent group tried to ask for an autopsy so they could determine once and for all whether this was, in fact, the original Roy Horn. And guess what? They were ignored, so they were ghosted. So nobody wanted to let them know one way or the other whether it was, in fact, Roy or a body double. So the legend, the urban legend of Roy Horn and the body double will persist now throughout time. That'll never be put to rest unless, of course, someone goes through the trouble of digging up the grave, if there is a grave. I'm not sure there is a grave, but anyway. So I never believe all those BS rumors that for some reason this was a product of mistreatment of the cat. I think if anything, this was a big cat acting out like a big cat, for whatever reason. Maybe it thought it was playing, or maybe it thought it was, saving, Roy, whatever the case is. My big cat Bailey, I'm pretty sure loves me, but every now and then we'll get a little antsy, and a 30-pound cat waving his paw around is gonna hurt. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, there's that. So that's one little caveat I have in that story. But okay, so the legend of Roy Horn persists to this day. Will continue to persist. The next urban legend I have, which is a famous one, especially if you live here in Vegas, and I've got a few special takes on this, but it's the old Megabucks, the curse of Megabucks. So Megabucks is a famous dollar slot machine, progressive dollar slot machine. I believe now it starts at $10 million. As long as I can remember being a part of Vegas, Megabucks has been a thing. I used to play it long ago when it was at the Maxim. So I had a friend of mine who was a shift boss at the Maxim. I'd go into the Maxim and they had one bank of Megabucks slots, and me and a friend of mine would sit there and hit like $150. And every time it got up to some ridiculous amount, usually over 20 million, something like this, because I guess, the idea was that the higher it got, the greater the odds that would hit, right? This was back when you didn't have any ticket validators. You actually had to buy in for the silver and just feed that silver and, and hope for a hit. And there were times when we actually walked away a winner. So there were other payoffs to get too. So I remember one time, I think we made like $600. But for the most part, you were playing for the big hit. This is a game-changing, slot machine, Megabucks. So one of the very first well-known curse of Megabucks kind of things is sort of like an oddball story more than really a curse. And where it actually took place, it's hard to know. But back in the early 90s, I was working downtown. And the story goes that this gentleman, an older gentleman and his wife, sat down at the El Cortez, got a bucket of silver put into Megabucks. He sits there and explains to his wife, because his wife's kind of a cheapskate. She doesn't like putting in. You had to put in $3, by the way, per spin. It was $3, okay? If you put in less than $3, you couldn't win, the Megabucks. You got some kind of lower amount, you follow? And it was a 3-reel machine. And the winning reel was like the third rung, the bottom rung. Well, the center line wasn't the winner. The winner was, I think, the third rung, or maybe it was the center line, I'm not sure. But anyways, so they sit down to play this machine. He's sitting there with his wife, right? He's playing $3. So he has to get up and go to the bathroom. And he knows that she's just a ridiculous cheapskate and just does not like to play max coins, does not want to pay $3 a spin. But he's like, listen, this is back when Megabucks had gotten up there. It was at like $20 million and something like this. And El Cortez didn't have many of these machines. It was a small bank of machines, and people would be standing there waiting. They would, in some cases, literally be lined up waiting for someone to free up a spot. One time I was at the Gold Coast. They had a progressive nickel machine, a 10-spot nickel machine that got up to $100,000. And you would see people literally in line, 5 people deep, waiting for one of these machines on this bank to clear up. I mean, as I sat there, I know there were like literally families doing rotations on this machine until it hit. It was a 10-spot with max coin and I think 4 nickels in for 100 grand, big. Anyways, so here he is back at the El Cortez. He's got to go to the bathroom. So he tells his wife, he's like, listen, I got to go to the bathroom. For the love of God, don't put in $1. You got to put in $3 because if you hit it, and we would, we're going to miss out on millions of dollars. And she's like, yeah, whatever, just go to the bathroom, talking smack. He goes to the bathroom and he comes back. She's so excited. So she's sitting there. Well, maybe not so excited, but she's sitting there and she's waiting to get paid. And he's like, oh my God, what did you hit? And he looks at the machine and she's got all the Megabucks lined up. She's got all the Megabucks lined up, but she only put in 1 coin. She only put in 1 coin. So instead of getting the $20+ million Megabucks, she was sitting there waiting to get paid $10,000, okay? Which, that's a nice hit, but it's not 20 million, it's 10,000. So as the story goes, he proceeded to either pick up his cane or some other object and just start kind of beating the hell out of his wife until they pulled him off him, he got sent to jail, he got to think about it. And then they asked him if he regretted beating up his wife. And he was like, oh, hell no. You know what I mean? I regret not staying there and not just peeing in my pants so I would have won $1 million of Megabucks. A lot of people tell me that sometimes it's all about the timing on the button. Like if he had never left to go to the bathroom, that might not have happened. The fact that she sat down and changed sort of the timing and the rhythm of it, you know what I mean? He might not have won anything. But anyway, so that's the story. El Cortez, 10,000 instead of 20 million, beats the hell out of his wife, doesn't regret it. Okay, that's one sort of urban legend related to the whole Megabucks thing. All right, so the next one is, it gets terrible. It's a terrible story. This woman wins Megabucks. It's for about $35 million. So it's in 2000. She hits Megabucks for nearly $35 million. And it's a big day. It's very exciting. Obviously, it's a game-changing thing. And less than a week later, she's at a traffic light. She's literally stopped at a traffic light. It's her and her sister in the car. And some guy, this guy, with 16 DUIs, is drunk driving and rear ends their car at this traffic light. Sister passes away from this accident. And Cynthia, the winner of this Megabucks jackpot, and this, by the way, is a true story. This is not, the El Cortez one has sort of been changed around a little bit. I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but this is a true story. So Cynthia ends up paralyzed. She ends up a quadriplegic. She ends up paralyzed. By the way, there were 3 other people injured in this accident too. So the guy with the 16 DUIs leading up to this accident. I mean, it's amazing that he was even driving in the first place, but crazy, right? So he ends up going to jail for 28 years for this accident. They finally put his ass away, but now she is $35 million richer, but a quadriplegic, right? So that's where, after that accident, that's where sort of the curse, the legend of this, Megabucks curse sort of became a thing, right? And of course, I mean, I'm sure Megabucks doesn't think it's an issue, and most people have written it off. It's just, bad set of coincidence, obviously, had nothing to do, but it is sad that this happened. Okay, since then, there have been all sorts of rumors associated with people hitting jackpots and then somehow something happens to them. And you have to imagine, right? You win a ton of money and now your whole life has changed. All the things that you used to do, maybe you just sat home picking your teeth, you know what I mean, itching your balls, watching TV, and next thing you know, you're jumping out of planes, you're driving a Lamborghini. I mean, clearly, you're putting yourself in better situations to fall victim or fall foul of some bad luck or, some bad things. So that's the thing, because I'm safe at my house, in my basement. You know what I'm saying? I win $20 million, I might be out in the street doing stuff that I can get run over, get shot, you never know, whatever the case is. So I can see how that could be a thing, you know what I mean? I mean, just naturally, organically, as they say. So there's that. The third urban legend is kind of a weird one. I personally don't have any sort of hands-on knowledge of this other than to have heard some of the stories, some of the secondhand stories of people having different experiences. But the third urban legend has to do with what is Bally's now, but with the MGM Fire. So the MGM, where Bally's is here in Las Vegas on Flamingo, that used to be the MGM Hotel. And back in November 21st of 1980, one of the towers experienced just a ridiculous fire. And it was a fire on, one of the highest floors, and then smoke ended up filling the place, and quite a few people died. Like 85 or 87 people died of smoke, mostly smoke inhalation. In fact, that fire was instrumental into evolving our fire departments here in Vegas. So now they have, like, can you imagine? This was a huge tower. And one of the problems they had was getting the flipping ladders all the way up there to access some of these rooms. So now they can. I mean, I find it stunning that they can get a ladder up on, like, the MGM towers, or even the Wynn or Encore if they need to. But I guess that's a thing. Like the fire department here in Vegas is that, or Clark County, is quite amazing. They have all these tools ready to go to, if there should be a fire, to kind of get you out, get you safe, and sort of mitigate any issues. But at the time, that wasn't a thing. And Bally's or MGM at the time became a victim of itself. A lot of people died, okay? So the urban legends go that if you play Bally's, if you end up on one of the floors that used to be associated, or that sort of syncs up with where these fires used to be, that sometimes you'll see apparitions walking through the hallway. And some people have literally tried to document, the ghosts of the hallways that still live, or people that died on the floors. But more interesting is the stories of people still playing slots. They can still see people on the floor in positions like they're playing slot machines or pulling bandits, and they're supposedly ghosts. Because so you know how the story goes, right? Like, you're still a ghost if you haven't, finished whatever it is you were on Earth to do. And can you imagine, for some people, that's just winning a jackpot. Like, you know what I mean? For some people, it's just pulling the bandit and, winning something big. And so these people sort of forgot that they died. They died so quickly, they didn't realize they were died, and they're still in the mix, dude. They're waiting for that score. They're waiting to hear that cha-ching. They're waiting for that jackpot to set off. But anyways, that's the last final urban legend for you. The ghosts of the MGM. And it's interesting. Go to Bally's one day and look for yourself. Take one of those ghostly cameras and see if what you can check. Maybe stay up on the floor. Maybe Bally's should have that whole ghosts of Bally's or ghosts of MGM sort of rooms available. You know what I mean? They can put an asterisk next to the rooms that they know where ghosts have been sighted. I know a lot of people look for that kind of stuff. That'd be kind of cool. But anyways, so that's just the first 3. I got many, many more. There's quite a few urban legends associated with Vegas. Some of it involves quite a lot of drinking, quite a lot of drugs, lots of gambling. There's a lot of holes in the desert. Mobsters ran this place for a long time. So there's tons of urban legends to go. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. This is David here at Casino Quest. Take care, guys. Bye.